sis, hang up
Yes.
your cape. How do we prioritize ourselves? This is for Black women. If you are the superwoman at the job, at your family, in the church, then you need to watch this conversation because we're going to talk about what is the cape that we're talking about. And as Black women, how do we learn how to prioritize ourselves and what that might mean in terms of boundaries or showing up in different ways in different spaces so that we're not so exhausted of giving so much and not having time for ourselves. So if you feel like you are wearing the cape, you feel like you're the superwoman at work, your family, church, anywhere in your life, then you need to watch this conversation. If you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist of 20 years. Also, I'm a toxic job survivor and a toxic job liberator for Black women. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of wellness. So if you've noticed, I've been talking about not only Black women and toxic jobs, but particularly after the election, I've been doing a lot more wellness videos as well, because from my experience and from so many other Black women that I know as clients, family, friends, we are exhausted. We're exhausted about everything that's been going on. So I said, you know what? Let's have moments of wellness. So I'm collaborating with Black women who are experts in the field of wellness to help us out. So today we have Harmony here with us today. So Harmony, can you please introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Harmony. I too am an exhausted Black woman. Okay. Even though I am an expert, I am putting all of my expertise to work on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
I am an ICF PCC level professional coach. I coach in life and leadership. I'm also a personal trainer, a yoga teacher. We met at the tree while I was
Yes.
subbing for one of our yoga teachers for meditation. I'm also a Reiki master teacher. Um, I'm one of those people, like, if I thought I wanted to do it, I was like, okay, well, let me do it. So last pod, when you guys were talking about, do I need a degree in that? I was caught up in
Mm-hmm.
that for a while. I have a master's of divinity from APU. I also have a bachelor's and master's in business. So
Yes. Well, thank you for being here, Harmony. And she's referencing the video that I did this past Sunday about degrees are not going to save you. So getting more and more and more degrees and credentials when you're in a toxic situation, it's not going to help you because you're already in a toxic system. So Harmony, when we talk about superwoman, let's define first, what do we mean about Black women as a superwoman? And what do we mean about the cape? What do we mean for people who might not know what that is?
So let me give a little bit of background on what I started to understand and the trajectory when I got to Dr. Giscombe's book this past year. I think her book was published in 2024.
Mhm.
So way back about 10 years ago, a friend of mine decided to start a coaching business. And part of the foundations that we use was a book called The Sacred Pampering Principles for
Ah,
African American Women.
mhm.
I got a whole lot of books sitting up here.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have that too.
Mhm. And so that book started me on a trajectory of just reminding people that they need to do more self care. And I was in the
Mhm,
middle of graduate school.
mhm,
At my heaviest, I was 236 pounds. I had gotten that way because my mom had multiple sclerosis,
mm,
and I became her primary caregiver way
mm.
back when I was a nice, ripe 16-year-old teenager.
Oh, wow.
So we did half and half. She took care
Mm,
of me for 15 years. I took care of her 15 years. And
mm,
then she parted this plane when I was 29, getting ready to turn 30.
mm,
So at 29, I had a crisis of conscience. I had my first ish midlife crisis of,
mhm.
what do I do with my life?
Yeah.
Because I had put on this caregiver cape, this element of the cape of a
At
caregiver, and was
16.
not taking care of myself. Right. So
Right.
that's one element of the cape.
Mhm.
But I was completely driven.
Mm,
So finished high school early, jumped into a full time job, jumped into great careers early
mhm,
on, and then
mhm,
decided to go back to school.
Mm.
Um, was able to get a master's degree. I finished my master's degree the year after she passed away. So I was
Mm.
doing all these things while I was taking care of her because
Mm.
I was highly driven,
Right.
which is another element of the cape,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So one element is that we always prioritize our loved ones in front of ourselves,
Yes. Yes.
almost to
Can
the
you
point
speak
of,
a little bit? I'm sorry.
go
Yes.
ahead.
Okay. So prioritizing our loved ones over us to the extent that we might be burnt out or whatever, but we're just going to give everything we have because we love our family. But many times that's our family role. The
Yeah.
other part I heard you say, Harmony, was even though you were caretaking for your mom, you were still work driven and you were doing all this stuff in your master's program and everything else. Can you speak to the drive for many Black women that we have in terms of our education?
Well, I think that most of us grew up on the understanding
Hmm.
that we had to be twice as good as everyone else.
Yep. And this is around the country that we get the same lesson no matter where you are. Yep.
I talked about it in my first book
Yep.
because that was my come from is I have to
Hmm.
push twice as hard. I have to be twice as good. I came
Hmm.
up with dyslexia, dysnumeria. Sometimes I get tongue tied and I immediately have to snatch myself out of it because we also, and part of the CAPE, so I'm on 3, we are not taught that we can be vulnerable.
True.
We are taught that we are not supposed to show emotion. So
Hmm.
we are supposed to take care of everybody above ourselves,
Hmm.
even to the point of martyrdom, right? Lay
Yep.
ourselves on the cross. We
Yep.
are taught that we have to be uberly driven,
Hmm.
twice as good as everybody in the room.
Hmm.
Never let them see you shake,
Nope.
right? If you got to cry, you better wait till you get in the car and down the street and around the corner.
Right, right. And if you go in the bathroom and cry at your job, you better get your face together when you come back out. Right.
Because even as a small child, I was taught crying doesn't solve any problems,
Mm.
which is not what I actually saw modeled as an adult in the workplace. Now,
Hmm.
it may not have worked for me, but it
Right,
might work for others.
right. People who don't look like us, maybe.
You
Okay.
know,
Yes.
everybody has their winning strategies.
Right.
Never let them see you shake. So we can't show vulnerability. So we've covered caregiving, even to our own detriment.
Hmm.
We've covered being highly driven.
Hmm.
We've covered not showing vulnerability. Um, what am I missing? Um, we have to present as strong.
Right. We can't be vulnerable.
We
Yeah.
cannot be vulnerable. And
Yeah.
even those things are separated, they are all the same cape. It's like one shoulder and then the other shoulder,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. And you can never take it off at that.
No.
Yeah.
And
So it just
and
stays on
what
you.
you guys
Hmm.
were and I keep going back to that last pod because I think it was really, really, really good,
Hmm.
is this is something that is cultural. This
Hmm.
is something that is learned, but it
Hmm.
also goes back to and Shanika Walker Barnes in Too Heavy a Yoke broke down how slave owners wrote about how we could give birth and 2 days later they could throw us back into the field.
Yeah. Yeah. Not valuing our humanity at all.
No, but we could.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, they can do it and not break.
Mhm.
But the
Mhm.
problem is we do break.
Yes. And we've internalized that slave mentality. So it reminds
Yes.
me of Dr. Joy DeGruy with post-traumatic slave syndrome. We're still
Yes.
acting out in ways
Yes.
about the residual impact of slavery, and we don't
Yes.
recognize it. And then we internalize and say, "No, I'm strong. I got this. They're not going to give me out this good job." And but we're not recognizing that we're getting exploited and we're getting harmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last point that Dr. Gisbome makes is we are taught that we have to make a way out of no way.
True that. Yes. Yes. And that's why black women, they come to black women to save everybody, right? To save the church, to
Mhm,
save the community, to save the
mhm,
family, to
mhm,
save the election. That didn't,
mhm,
but
mhm.
all the pressure goes on us.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so that's why we're the highest in every metabolic dysfunction, every
Hmm.
cardiac dysfunction. We're
Hmm.
the highest in diabetes. We're the highest in heart disease. We're the highest in obesity.
Hmm.
Why? because we internalize all this pain because we're not expressing what's going on. Um, Rest is Resistance is one of my favorite books, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like we have to learn how to take the cape off
Yes.
and just sit down
Yes.
and
Yes.
say no.
Mm-hmm. 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 And I think for us, it is giving ourselves permission to rest because again, we've been told that we always got to be on the move. Then
Hmm.
you had this whole like hustle culture, like
Hmm.
I'm asleep when I'm dead, like so the
Hmm. Grind
internalizing
culture, absolutely.
grind culture, capitalism, all that.
Hmm.
And so we have to be intentional saying, no, I need to take time to rest because number one, I can't be healthy if I'm not
It's not
resting.
sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Number two, I have every right to rest. Number three, I want to give honor to our ancestors who couldn't rest.
That
So
part.
let me rest because they did so much. So we would have the ability to rest. So
Yeah,
for us to say, oh, I don't have time to rest, I'm too busy, I feel like you're dishonoring our ancestors. So no,
absolutely.
take that intentional time to rest. And we have to model that for our children too. Because if not,
Yes,
then they're going to keep transmitting that generational pattern of unhealthy functioning, right?
absolutely.
Yes, yes. So, Harmony, can you share with us in what ways? Because now what I'm hearing is that now you know what the cape is. You're like, I'm taking off the cape. So, we're going to take a step back to talk about what was it like when you had the cape? Because you talked about caretaking for your mom. So, in terms of your family, can you share with us
I was
about,
depressed.
ah,
I was depressed. I was
mm,
depressed. I didn't have an identity outside of anybody. I
mm,
lived for the opinions of others, for the accolades of others.
mm-hmm,
I remember telling one of my close friends, I don't know what I'm supposed to do when someone's not telling me what I should be doing. But I've
wow,
always been a leader.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
why is it that I feel like I need direction? I didn't know who I was. I didn't
mm-hmm,
know who I was if I wasn't taking care of someone else.
mm-hmm.
So, of course, I went from taking care of my mom to trying to take care of everybody else around me because it was easier to try and fix everybody else than it was to slow down and look at myself.
Well, that's your identity to help, the helper.
Yeah,
Mhm,
I'm
mhm, and
not
you didn't
worth the
think about part of
attention.
it. Ooh, and you said that the impact, which I appreciate you brought up the mental health impact, was it contributed to depression. Did people around you, could they tell that you were depressed or you were experiencing depression?
No,
No, because I think so many of us as Black women, we mask. We mask. We
absolutely.
act like everything's because we look good, right? We
Yeah.
look good. We're functioning well. We're like, oh, no, no, we got this. I got this. I got this.
Mhm.
But really suffering inside. So when you're experiencing depression, and what ways that show up in your life, the depression?
I was overeating. I was, like I said, I was at my heaviest, I was 236 pounds.
Mm,
Um, I jumped into helping people, then jumped into ministry.
mm,
And I realized that I fed off of the identity of being a helper
ah,
and the quote unquote suffering servant.
ooh, the suffering servant. Elaborate on that, please.
That's also my first book.
Ooh.
So I think some of us take on this moniker of being the suffering servant and look at me,
Mm,
poor me. I have to take care of someone else. I have to take care of everyone else. No one cares about me. And our ego is fed by other people saying, oh, really? What all is going on with you? And
mm,
then we get to complain and we get to stay in our victim narrative.
mm,
But then we
mhm.
just perpetuate the same cycle, and it's disempowering because we're giving all of our power to other people instead of
Mhm.
saying I want something different for myself.
Right. And not even know, but you were saying you didn't even know what you wanted for yourself, really, when you were in that state,
No,
right?
because I wasn't looking at myself.
Yes, 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 yes. Looking for other people. Hmm. Hmm. So you talked about home stuff. Can you talk about in the workplace? Did you experience that in the workplace where you were like the superwoman at the job?
Absolutely. I was the go-to person. I was
Mm,
the go-to person. At one point I was the second highest paid black person, and then the highest paid black person left and he said be careful, and then I was the highest paid black
you said be
person.
careful.
Oh yeah.
Why do you say be careful?
Oh yeah. Because once you're the highest paid Black person, and I was at a young age, like excelling. People did not know how old I was, just like people don't know how old I am now. When I was younger, I looked older. When I'm getting kind of seasoned now, everyone thinks I'm younger, and so he was right to tell me to watch out.
Were they
Because
coming
the
for you?
moment I made a mistake,
They were waiting.
oh
They were
yeah,
waiting. Right. It's
oh
like
yeah,
it's like I cannot believe. On the one hand, they loved Harmony. Oh my God, Harmony's so great. Oh my gosh, she's so smart. She's fixing everything. And then what happened, Harmony? Is it that they found out how much you were making? What happened? What happened?
you know, I asked the right question in the wrong place.
Mm,
And instead of someone pulling me aside and saying that was inappropriate to ask that question in that space,
mm-hmm.
they were like, we're going to lay you off. And they
Whoa.
immediately tried to put all of my work onto my coworker who was working right under me. She was a
Mm.
junior level, I was a senior level, another Black woman. And within a week, my girl quit.
Woo. Wow. Wow.
She
So
was like, I'm
they
not doing this.
right. So it was no room for when you talk about like for Black women, we have less access to mentorship or support in
Yes.
the workplace. So that's an example. Boom, you make one mistake, you're gone. We got to get rid of you. Okay. And so was that the only place where you felt like you were like the superwoman at the job? Was it
No,
like a
almost
pattern?
every environment I've been in, I've always been the go-to person. I'm always the superwoman. I'm always the, oh, go ask her. She's gonna know. And if she
Uh-huh.
doesn't know, she'll know what questions to ask or who to ask. I've always been that
Yes.
person.
Yes. So
But
you're holding on.
it's
Uh-huh.
it's also that achievement-based thinking, right? Because we want to
Mm-hmm.
be better than everyone else
True.
because it's
But we know we
ingrained.
have to, and then we want to.
Yeah, because it's attached to the ego,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
And in the immature self-esteem, it's
Mhm,
attached to our self-esteem. As our
mhm,
self-esteem and self-confidence grows, we
mhm.
learn to say I don't know with conviction. And when people continue to ask, because that's, to me, that's even funnier, is once you get into your own confidence, you learn how to set boundaries. Once you start
Mhm.
setting them and people are like, but wait, I expect you to operate, even if I haven't known you to wear the cape. I
Yes,
expect you to wear the cape because
yes,
that's what you're supposed to be doing.
yes, yes. And
Don't you
how
know
dare you
that?
set boundaries too? How
Oh
dare
yeah.
you? Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
How dare
Especially when
you?
you step out of that role, like I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing
Yeah.
this anymore. Yeah. And then you also talked about at church that you wore the cape and you talked about things that happened in the church. Can you please share about that as well?
You know, I have found that ironically, our folks are sometimes worse than them folks.
In what ways?
So, in the church house, I was hired in to be a youth minister.
Hmm.
Um, I um, attended, I over served, I over educated myself beyond any of the other youth ministers, with the
Hmm.
caveat of the youth ministers that did want to turn into pastors.
Okay.
But I was always clear I did not want to be a pastor.
Hmm.
I was asked to be a Sunday school teacher.
Mhm.
Came in as a Sunday school teacher because someone
Mhm.
who is passed on from this realm, but very significant in my upbringing, asked me. I said, I'll think about it, took
Mhm.
over.
Okay.
Same group of young women
Mhm.
needed a youth director. So I stepped into being a youth director.
Mhm.
I interviewed, became the youth director.
Okay.
Um, I showed up for the girls. I went over and above, picked them up, took them to dentist appointments when they needed them, picked them up, took them to the church when they needed it. Um, there was other people that were part of the youth team that would not show up on time, that would not show up on a regular basis. They
Mm.
were never reprimanded.
Wow.
When I had decided for myself that I wanted to change,
Mhm.
and towards the end of my master's of divinity, that's when I pivoted to fitness. I wasn't available for vacation Bible school. And I made it clear I was not going to be available for
Mm-hmm.
vacation Bible school.
Mm-hmm.
Towards the end, the pastor was displeased with my performance. He pulled me aside and shared with me his displeasure and gave me a job description that was different than my original job description.
What? So you wait a minute.
It's
You
actually
already working a job, then you're gonna give me a job description after? Okay.
it was I had an original job description, they lost it.
Oh, wow.
Here's the new one. Every other
That
youth
sounds very
minister only
shady,
had to be there
Harmony.
on youth Sunday. You wanted me there every Sunday in a full suit. Once I came back from my Israel trip, I didn't want to be in the pulpit when I had to deliver a sermon. I would stand down with the people because in the synagogues in Israel, you're on a lower level, everyone is sitting above you. I
Hmm.
did not like the Westernized culture where I was standing above everyone else.
Hmm.
Every Sunday in a suit, every Sunday in the pulpit.
Hmm.
Then told me, period, point blank, we can do this taking the high road or the low road. The high road is you can resign, or the low road, we can fire you.
What?
I'm sure you
Wow.
can guess that I resigned.
Wow. So, okay, first, the switcheroo. So shady, shady,
Yeah.
right? And then basically that was not really a choice. They said they were pushing you out. Oh my God. And this is your church.
Ask me how many of those kids still go to that church.
Probably none. Wow.
Not
That's
on their
terrible.
own will.
That's terrible. That's terrible. So how did that impact you that that was coming from your church?
It just helped me realize that people are people and
Mm,
people are going to people no matter what shape, size, color they are. Everyone throws their weight around when they can.
mhm. Mhm.
And there's toxic systems within systems because systems are ran by people.
Yes. Yes, who are hurt, right?
Yes.
Who
And
are
hurt
hurt.
will hurt people.
So
You're
true.
dealing with a lot of people's insecurities. And
Yeah.
so that was the pastor's insecurity that I was going to leave because I now had more options,
Mm.
right? And you wanted to try and box me in and force me to stay. And anything you try and hold on to too long, you are going to choke the life out of. And
Yeah.
so you choke the life out of the relationship with the church. So,
Wow. And even trying to intimidate in some ways.
oh, very much so.
Uh-huh. And what did you can you elaborate a little bit? Because I get so many comments, so many questions about, hey, do you talk about all skin folk and kinfolk? Can you talk more about that? And I have a whole playlist about that. But can you talk about, because you said sometimes our people can be a challenge in some ways. Can you talk about ways in that situation that it seemed like it was like a cultural thing, right? It felt like, the all skin folk and kinfolk kind of situation.
You know, I think that when it goes back to boundaries,
Mhm.
I think about how other cultures look at each other.
Hmm.
So, because of our adaptation to build communities in slavery, we
Mhm.
tend to blur lines when it
Mhm.
comes to community dynamics.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, just the element of assuming that we're kinfolk
Mm.
is something I don't give myself the luxury to do
Got it.
because I don't know how you were raised.
Right. Right. And I think sometimes we give each other passes because of this assumed kinship, and then we get hurt and we're like, wait a minute, what happened?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I try and allow everyone to start with a blank slate
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and see
Okay.
how it goes,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
See where your sticky spots are, see where your sensitive areas are, see
Mm-hmm.
where your challenges are, see where you may have a blind spot in a certain area, see
Mm-hmm.
where you might be hiding. Because after being in so many toxic situations in multi in different industries, different communities,
Mm-hmm.
I just watch.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just watch.
Yeah. So, Harmony, can you share with us how did you take off the cape? How did you do it?
First and foremost, I had to get real with myself and I had to sit with myself for a while.
Mm,
And lucky for me, I was introduced to a lot of pastoral counseling, a lot of different coaching,
mhm.
and a lot of different exercises that challenged me to look at myself
Okay.
and decide who is it that you want looking back at you. So, my
Mm,
first exercise in my first book is sitting in the mirror for 3 minutes, uninterrupted, without judgment.
hmm. Wow.
And sitting in the mirror for 3 minutes without judgment is really, really hard.
Right. Right. All those social messages, what your family
Yes.
said, what your friends said.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And why does their opinion matter?
True.
When they can only see you through the lens of their life,
Mm-hmm.
through all the things that they experience, I could look like the auntie that used to beat you.
Mm.
So when I look at you a certain way, you could feel as if that means something. And I could be thinking in my head, oh, that's strange.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to get real with myself. And from there, I decided what I wanted my life to look like.
Mm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
worked every day to make my life look the way I wanted my life to look.
You talk about power. That's powerful to be able to do that because so many times we live in a way where we're like playing out defined roles or what people say we should do, or maybe you shouldn't do that. But you're just like, no, I'm sitting with myself. I'm deciding the life that I want, and I am courageously doing whatever I need to do to make this life happen as I
Yeah.
want it to be on my terms.
Yeah. My first day of my pastoral counseling class with Dr. Danny said, rule number one is don't should on people.
Mm, I like that.
And
I like that.
so, as a coach, I don't should on people. I ask them
Hmm.
lots of questions.
Hmm.
I try and pivot them back to what they really want.
Hmm.
And I keep asking the question of, okay, so if this is what you really want, how does that inform this decision?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, you can have competing intentions. You can also really want to lose weight and really want to eat your emotions.
True. True.
And not to say you have to choose one all the time,
Hmm.
but in this moment, what's going to serve you best?
Yeah. 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 So there's different ways for us to take our power back. And it sounds like you were getting support from the pastoral counseling class you were in. What other things were helping you kind of take off the cape?
Trial and error, trial and error, and understanding that I was going to lose relationships.
Mm.
And the fear of losing relationships was not going to hold me back from
Mm.
losing the relationship I had with myself.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And so you
I
went from
challenged everything. I
right, right.
challenged what I thought about everything.
Mm. Okay. So a lot of questioning and
A lot of
redefining,
questioning all the
exploration.
time.
Okay. So you went from this woman who was caretaking all the time, didn't really have an identity of who you really were outside of helping people, very driven, to saying, wait a minute, what got you to the point where you said, I need to take up the cape? What happened? Because most of us just keep going and we don't we recognize we had a cape, but we just keep going that way. Was there something that happened?
There wasn't anything that was like this flipped the switch and I was like, okay, no more of that. It
Hmm.
was me having this realization
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't want to live like that anymore.
Wow.
Too heavy a yoke happened
What was
while
that?
I was in pastoral counseling. Too heavy a yoke, the burden of Black women's strength. This
Mm.
book happened.
Tell us about that book. I'm not familiar with that book.
Oh man, honey, I read it in 2016 on my way to Israel. I graduated in 2017 from my master's divinity, and
Mhm.
it breaks down the historical context of why we are so strong and the burden it's taking on us physically.
Wait, I'm gonna put that in the chat. So tell me the name of the book again.
I can drop it in the chat actually because
Okay.
I listed all
Okay.
the books that I know I already gonna reference because I have them sitting
Wow.
right here.
Wow. And everyone, I will put all the books that we're talking about today. I'll put that in the description section of this video too. That's deep. I'm surprised I've never heard of that book.
Oh yeah, Shanika Walker Barnes,
Okay.
worth it.
Okay. So you were reading the book on the way to Israel.
I'm reading the book leaving APU the same year I went to Israel. Oh, it
Hmm.
won't let me join the chat. Okay.
Oh, uh,
Unfortunately, I
just
can
tell me the
email
name.
you.
Just tell me the name of
It's
it right now.
Too Heavy a Yoke.
Too heavy a yoke.
Yes. Black Women and the Burden of Strength.
Burden of strength. Wow, that's heavy. Okay, that's a heavy title. Okay, so let me put that up on the screen. And again, everyone, I'll put that in the chat as well. So you're reading the book, and that helped you reevaluate where your life was.
Yeah, it made me realize that the decisions I was making weren't, I wasn't making them consciously. A lot of them were made subconsciously, and a lot of them were being made, had been made for my ancestors
Hmm.
without their decision.
Ah,
So they were made for them. And
yeah,
so it's like learning what we're eating when it comes to soul food and saying, I have hypertension. I might not want to eat that.
right, right, right.
So being more informed on our decision making. So she
Hmm.
breaks down how we are the highest in all these health risk categories. And I'm
Hmm.
looking at myself in all these health risk categories.
Hmm.
So it's like, oh, okay. Well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
To
That
be
we do have
forewarned is to
choice
be
to change
forearmed.
things, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we feel like we don't have agency, like all these things are
Yes.
happening to us, and oh, this is happening to me. It's yeah, certain things are happening to us, but we also have agency. And so it
Yes.
sounds like when you read that book, it was like kind of a come to Jesus moment, like, whoa, wait a minute, this is me with all these health issues, and what am I going to do about this now?
Yes. Yes. That's
Okay,
it.
okay, perfect. Okay,
That's it.
okay. So, Harmony, can you share with the audience what does your life look like now? And yeah, what does your life look like now?
So I wake up in the morning and I pet my dog, and then we go for a walk, and then I go to the gym and I talk to clients at home from my office in my house, and sometimes I go for a hike in the middle of the day. Um, Me and my partner are both gym rats, so sometimes he and I will go to the gym together, and we'll be at the gym for 3 hours. Um, I honestly do whatever I want every day. It's kind of
Isn't it a
obnoxious.
beautiful thing? Isn't it a beautiful thing?
It's
Like,
it's
it's like, wow,
if someone says they need me to sub a yoga class, I'm like, oh, okay, I can sub it. So,
wow. It's such
I'll
a good
drive from
thing.
Pasadena to LA to sub a yoga class if I have the
Wow.
time, or, you
Yes.
know,
It's very
I
different
hang
from
out with
how
my
your life used to
grandmother.
be, how it used to be, right? So, like, very much dictated on certain obligations or responsibilities. And now, when you say, wait a minute, this is the life that I want for myself. So, I have two questions right quick.
Mhm.
One, I think some Black women who might be watching this have a hard time centering ourselves because we've been told that you don't center ourselves because then we're big headed and we're selfish, right? The other thing is, in terms of yoga, how
Okay.
did yoga help you in
Okay.
terms of your own healing? Because you talked about divinity, I've heard people say you can't be yoga and Christian, or you can't do yoga and be Christian. So can
Yeah,
you speak
I
to those
understand.
things? Yeah.
Okay. So, which one do you want me to tackle first?
So you could talk about the Black women and us centering ourselves and
Okay.
that notion that we're selfish if we do that.
Okay. So for those of you who've been on an airplane, you get on the airplane, you get on your seat, and the woman comes on and she's like, "All right, everyone, look in the front seat back pocket. You will find the instructions, and it says, if there is an event, there is going to be an oxygen mask that comes down, and please be sure that you put your oxygen mask on first."
Yes, yes.
Now they have to tell you every single flight. So I believe it's not intuitive for everyone,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
the reason why they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first
Hmm.
is so you're not going to pass out while you're trying to help someone else.
True. True.
So if you honestly want to show up. So I did my whole dissertation, well, my thesis, my end of my master's on the Shema. Love God with your whole heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? It's in the Old Testament. It's the one and only commandment in real life.
Hmm.
And then Jesus came to fulfill it.
Hmm.
You cannot love God with
Mhm.
all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself if you
Mhm.
don't know how to love yourself.
Mm. Good point. Good point. So to be of service, you need to be of service to yourself first.
Period.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Okay.
you're going to be nasty. You're going to be tired.
Hmm.
What's the acronym HALT? Don't do anything if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Hmm. That's a good reminder. That's a good reminder. Okay. Okay. So for us, it's not selfish. So we have to reject
It's
that.
not
We have to reject
selfish.
that. Yes. Yes.
Self preservation is the first law of nature.
And I've been doing a whole bunch of videos after this election talking about self-preservation with Audre Lorde. Self-care is self-preservation. That's the act of political warfare. So for us as
Mhm.
Black people, that for us to make it out of this situation, that we have to be well. And so we have to
Yeah.
center our own wellness. So that's political warfare. So Harmony, what about the part about yoga? So can you tell us a little bit more about your introduction to yoga, what yoga has done for you, and that part about that I hear so often about you can be Christian and do yoga.
Okay, so I'm going to give you that, and I'm going to give you something else that you didn't
Okay.
ask for. I was first introduced to Reiki. Yoga is a little bit more popular than Reiki, but they're both healing modalities that have to do with energy.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm,
Reiki is Japanese in origin.
mm-hmm,
Yoga is attributed mostly to our brothers and sisters in the Middle East, India, right?
mm-hmm,
Just because not everybody had a phone doesn't mean not everybody knew God.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Okay. Um, Black people, do your own research about who God is and who you are to God.
mm.
Another great book, Reading the Bible from the Margins, Miguel de la Torre. I'm a nerd. I read.
Reading the Bible from the margins.
Yes. Understanding who you are based on most people's theology is a Canaanite. But what they will hide from you is that there are kings and queens in the Bible that were from Africa that were exalted in the Bible,
Mm-hmm,
but glazed over because we
mm-hmm,
don't really get their story. So,
mm-hmm,
like early on, Moses's father-in-law
mm-hmm,
was a priest and a king.
mm-hmm,
That's who helped him develop the system of judges. His name was Jethro.
mm-hmm,
We have to reclaim who we are. And so, by understanding, there are ways to get the energy out of our body that we have trapped inside of us. We deserve to get massages.
mm-hmm,
We deserve to have quiet time on someone's Reiki table where they could channel energy just the same as laying hands and praying.
mm-hmm,
Because just because someone spoke a different language
mm-hmm.
doesn't mean what they're doing is necessarily different. You can trace, and I know you took 200 jars. So I know you did decolonization of yoga,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you can trace yoga back to nothing but the blacks,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can trace lotus pose back, you can prayer pose. All of these means, if I took you through an hour stretch class and I taught you all of the principles of yoga, but never used the yoga terms, you'd
Mm-hmm.
have no pushback. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in my mind, these are ways that we've decided to limit ourselves in our thinking, to fit in the box, to appeal to white people and their religion.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So don't be so dismissive of what it is, basically.
No.
Okay. Okay.
No one said that Jesus didn't do yoga. We don't have his whole life and everything he did. He disappeared for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He was hanging out in Egypt for a while. They didn't even know where he was.
Mm-hmm. So, Harmony, how has yoga been helpful for you?
Yoga has offered me a way of approaching life on and off the mat in a way that's nonviolent, in the way where I can tell the truth without harming people,
Mm-hmm.
in a way where I can be authentic, in a way where I can self reflect, in the way where I can move energy throughout my body, in a way that I can challenge myself and how I'm processing things, in
Mm-hmm.
a way that I can practice healthy detachment,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is something that is foreign if we
Mm-hmm.
go back to the whole prioritizing people over ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most
Mm-hmm.
of us are usually taking on other people's problems like they're our own.
Yes, that's when you ask for somebody's advice, they get so like riled up because they make it seem like it's their issue and it's not really their issue because they become overly involved, right? So being able to hear and offer support, but not getting overly emotionally involved because that's draining for you too. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
believe there is something that could be learned from every experience we have
Mm-hmm.
with people who think like us, with people who don't think like us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we have to grab the box and rip it to shreds.
Mm.
It's not going to fit in a box.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to hear something and watch later on
True.
and
True.
see if someone else's truth can inform you. That way you can add to the pool of meaning.
True.
Some of us are looking for this existential response to find my calling. Oh,
Mm.
you know you're in your calling when what?
Right. I think it's different for everybody. Right? So if somebody's trying to dictate, this is how you know that you're in your calling, but it may not be the same for everybody in terms of how they come to that realization.
I used to tell the students, I used to work for Fuller Theological Seminary in the vocation and formation department.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, being a yoga teacher and doing Reiki. So I came across those questions of how can you do all of these things? Um, and I used to ask them, when do you feel like you're your most authentic self? Because I don't believe God would have you do something that doesn't feel right to you.
Mm. Good point. Good question. Good question.
So what is it that you feel like you could do every day and every night and you always have energy to do it?
Mm. Yeah. So that's self-reflection.
Yeah.
People, I think that the expectations are to do, right?
Hmm.
But not the self-reflection part and how does this relate to me in my life?
Hmm.
Okay, okay. So Harmony, can you share what are the ways you help Black women take off the cape in the work that you do?
I work on helping them paint the picture of what they want in life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the easiest exercises I could think of that everyone listening could participate in is I have a worksheet. And in the worksheet, it has columns. So if everybody has a piece of paper, they can grab a piece of paper, turn it to the side. So you have it the wide side.
Mm-hmm.
And starting from left to right, sorry, my dog's really, really asking for attention. Can you go lay down, please? Please, ma'am, you're about to knock everything over. Go ahead. I know. I know. I've been talking too long. She's like, this is what she likes to do all day. She likes to pet me.
Uh,
Um,
what are you doing?
yeah. What are we doing now?
Yes.
We're going to think about things that we want to start doing.
Mm-hmm.
Think about things we want to start doing more of that we're already doing, but we need to do more often.
Mm-hmm.
Think about things that we want to keep doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
Think about things we want to do less of, and think about things that we want to stop.
Mm.
And just, I let them sit there. Sometimes I let them sit there with color pencils.
Be
And then I'll
intentional.
ask, what do you want to work on first?
Yeah. 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 You know what? I think it's also allowing us to have permission to pause because so many Black women were always so busy doing all these things. We're like, oh, I can't think about it. But when you pause and say, wait a minute, just think about these things, just reflect and think about it, then you're open to say, wait a minute, oh, wait a minute, I'm not happy about this, or I want to see how to change this, but I don't know how to do that. So you're helping Black women get permission to self reflect and to pause and to center themselves.
Yeah.
And then they recognize ways they can take off the cape.
Yeah.
Uh
And
huh.
usually there'll be small areas where they realize, hey, I need to stop doing this.
Uh,
Hey, I need to stop doing that. Hey, this person's calling me all day and night
mm.
and they're draining the life out of me.
Ooh, yes.
And
Yes.
so then I asked the question, why are you always answering the phone?
That part. Right.
And
Right.
what's the most common answer? Oh, because they need me.
Right. Or I feel bad. I feel bad if I ignore them. Hmm.
Yeah. But if you ignore them, they might be able to do their own self reflection instead of always
True.
coming to you for the answer
True.
because you obviously don't have healthy boundaries if you're letting them call you all day and night and
Yeah.
you're being depleted.
Right. And that doesn't help them develop a sense of independence because they're always going to be like you're like the crutch, like you're always trying to help them. And I always say to people, if it's not a reciprocal relationship, you have to be mindful of your boundaries and how much energy that you give to people because then that wears you out. So, Harmony, I know we talked earlier about the possibility of you walking us through a breathing exercise. So, can you walk us through a breathing exercise? I think we all need that, particularly with everything going on right now.
Absolutely. I'd love to. So, everyone listening, go ahead and sit comfortably or maybe lay down. I'm going to use a visual aid just so we understand where we are in the breathing. So, breathing has 4 points. The first point that we're going to examine is our inhale. We're just going to start as the witness. We're not going to control it in any way. And then there's a hold, and then there's an exhale, and then there's a hold. So, just become a witness on how you're breathing right now. And then from there, let's start to even out the breath. Equal parts inhale to exhale. Inhale to exhale. Inhale to exhale. And then we're going to examine on the pauses in between. So we're going to inhale, hold for a moment at the top, and exhale, hold for a moment on the bottom. Inhale, hold for a moment at the top, and exhale. Hold for a moment on the bottom. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Inhale and exhale. Go ahead and breathe on your own. And when you're ready, you can bring your awareness back into our session.
That was beautiful. I don't know everybody. I was doing it. Okay. So I was like, oh, this feels so relaxing, and your voice is so soothing.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
yes, thank you so much. As we're winding down, can you share with people about your shirt?
Oh, my
Awesome.
shirt.
Yes.
So I am a Altadena, Pasadena resident. We have been impacted by the wildfires.
Mhm.
Um, we are committed to rebuilding. We are a generational family. We have 4 generations in this house in Pasadena. We've had 3 generations in the house in Altadena.
Wow.
4, 5. Sorry, 5 generations in the house in Altadena. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Yes.
And so I have a friend who has been dedicated to creating these shirts. So anyone who's interested, hit me in my DM and I will connect you with Dina Boy Juice. That's who created the crew neck that I have on now. And he also has t-shirts, and the hoodie is in the making.
Mhm.
It has a lot to it under where you can actually see on the camera. Let me see
Mhm.
if I could dip it down. There's Pasadena Rose, and it has streets around it, and it
Hmm.
says "We will rebuild."
Hmm.
So
That's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, I know the family. I mean, the community has been so impacted by the wildfires, and we've heard a lot about Pacific Palisades, but also there's other areas like Altadena as well that's been impacted, and there's a lot of Black people that live there. So, thank you for reminding us of that, and that the fire of we will
yeah,
rebuild. But then sometimes we need support, and sometimes we need rest, and sometimes we need other people to help out. So, thank you for
yeah.
sharing that. So, Harmony, can you share about your books? I've heard you reference your books, and also talk about the services that you offer and how Black women can contact you.
Absolutely. So I have written 2 books at the present moment. My first book I was speaking about earlier, Got Harmony, Quick Guide to Living Your Best Life. This is about crafting the life that you would love to live every single day and how to do that. It is less than 100 pages for all
Ooh.
of you who are intimidated by reading a book. I've had a lot of people say, I've never read a book all the way through, but I read your book. And then this is my latest book, Boundaries and
Mm.
Balance.
What is that picture of?
Little doggy.
So the yoga pose.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Firebird.
Hilarious.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Boundaries and Balance, Guide to Protecting Your Peace is the book that I finished last year while I was working on my 300-hour yoga teacher training. And it is the last 10 years of me being a coach. So I wrote this one 2020
Mm,
because I said, if I'm ever going to write a book, pandemic sounds like good a time as ever.
mm.
This was pre yoga. I did
Okay.
not have a yoga teacher training yet. I took my yoga teacher training after this book was already completed.
Mhm.
And this is post.
Got it.
So this is a nod
Okay.
to yoga as well. Both books encompass the majority of the topics I end up coaching on. So when people ask, what is it like having life coaching? I'm like, if you're not ready yet, go grab one of my books. They're both very reasonably priced. I think Got Harmony, Quick Guide to Living Your Best Life is like $13.99 on Amazon. The audiobook's like $5.99. Boundaries of Balance, I think it's like $20.99 because almost 200 pages, 180 pages. $5.99 for the Kindle. Still reasonable.
Okay, so they're
Right?
both available on Amazon.
Both available on Amazon.
Okay, so
Also, I want to offer a promotion for anyone listening who wants to try out any of my services. I still offer personal training, private yoga, and coaching, along with Reiki.
awesome. Okay.
So we have a promo code for today. It is Dr. Kimani 2525 because today is 2525.
Okay. Dr. Kamani 2025.
2525. All caps.
2525. Oh, I love it. Okay. I've never been a promotion code. Okay. That's right?
So no period,
Okay.
all caps, all scrunched together because it's a promotion code.
Got it. Let me do it
She's
again.
like, ooh, my first
I'm so
ever.
excited. Oh my God.
25% off any of my services through the month of February.
Ooh, check this out. Okay. Use my code. Okay.
That's
Let me
perfect.
put it on
Yep.
screen. Let me put it on screen. Okay. That's right?
Yep.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay. And so people can contact you. The best ways that you will want them to contact you is what?
So I am available on Instagram at Got Harmony. I also have a website, gotharmony.org. That takes you to my link tree, gives you all of the links to everything. My website that has all of the products, services, how to book everything is www.mindbodysoulplay.com. But you can go to everything at gotharmony.org.
Beautiful. So all that information in the description section, everybody. Okay. So
Yeah.
check it out. And so Harmony, as we're about to close, any last words you want to share with the audience?
If I were to leave any parting wisdom, it would be simply go in peace and not pieces.
Wow. Go in peace, not pieces. That was really, woo, okay. I got you. That's really profound. Thank you for sharing that. So thank you for being my guest, Harmony. Thank you everyone
Absolutely.
for watching. And
Thank
I
you so
saw
much
some
for having me.
comments. Absolutely saying thank you for everything. And also understanding in the workplace that as Black women, we're often put in a position to wear the cape. So we have to be intentional of setting that boundary, even though they may try to do things to put us in positions, right? We can kind of stand our ground. So again, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up and share this video with at least 2 other Black women. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so and turn the notification bell. And you have a YouTube channel too, yes?
I do. It's at Got Harmony 1212.
Okay, so that'll be in the description section too. So check out her YouTube channel, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when she is going live or if she's uploading something. Okay,
You don't
everyone.
have to. Yeah, I thank you for calling that into existence that I'm going
Yes,
to be doing those things. And apparently
absolutely.
I'm going to be doing those things.
You absolutely are. You
Like I'm
absolutely are.
going to be creating a StreamYard account after this is over.
Good. I love it. Okay, everyone. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.